Why is there such a huge gap between what we think parenting will be and what it actually is?
We are pissed off that actually building a relationship with a person, this very small person who has an underdeveloped brain, is going to take an awful lot of time and effort.
What are the jobs of mums and dads now? What's a dad now he's no longer just a provider? What's a mum now that she often is?
We're meant to be the mum, be the friend, have a job. If you don't have a job, the kid becomes the job. If you do have a job, the kid has to be, turn out all right so you can prove that you did both well.
Why, when we think having children will bring us closer together, does it so often push us apart? What am I supposed to teach or model for my children when I have no idea what the world is going to look like in 5 years' time?
Essentially, everything we're driving our children to is a perspective that we have of our generation. Any child that does exactly what we say to further their career as they get older is screwed.
Why did my parents have so much conviction about these things and I have absolutely none? Well, I don't know, but there are some really intelligent people all around the world who've been thinking about this stuff, and they are going to talk to me, and we might not answer all those questions every week, but if we listen to their ideas, maybe we can get some wisdom and some insight and maybe most importantly, some perspective and find out what it takes to be a happier parent. Today, I'm talking with Amiee Carlton. Amiee is a top parenting coach who trained under Dr. Shefali and Gabor Mate. Amiee is tough. Whenever we talk, she really challenges me. What I love about her is that this really robust challenge that she brings is essentially a challenge to let go of what we think is right, to let go of what we think good parenting is, to let go of what successful outcomes might look like. But we don't just keep it philosophical in the chat. We talk about screaming kids on aeroplanes and how we get kids to go to bed and why parental anxiety has never been higher. This is a great chat that is going to change the way you look at your role. I hope you enjoy it. We had a chat last week and I said to you, oh, okay, I don't know if it's perfect for the podcast because you're a parenting coach and the podcast isn't really about parenting. It's about parents and how we interact and, how we can grow ourselves. And you laughed in my face quite loudly. And you said, that's all I do. That's all I talk about.
Yeah, I am labeled, which is always lovely, a parenting coach. That's what people know me for in the work that I do. And a lot of people will then say, well, great, can I just bring you my kids? And I'm like, no, it's not really about your kids. We need to work with you. And so the focus of my work is really, I help parents improve their relationships with their children and how they relate to their children and how they communicate to their children. But all of it is about understanding the self as parents. So I then get told I'm talking about blame and fault. But that's not where I'm going to at all. It's just the only thing or place you can have any agency is over yourself.
There's a power in that, right? It's like
Only place there's power, Alex.
Yeah, I can change me. I can't really change anyone else in the world, including my children.
There's no really. There's not even really. You can only change the way you relate. Life's a dance. Think about it in any relationship that you're in. However any conversation goes has your part to play in it. And the only thing you control is your part. You can choose whether you step forward in a defensive way or step back and be passive. You can choose how you communicate, whether it's with a child, whether it's with a boss, whether it's with a partner. The thing is, with children, as parents, we think that we get to decide how they communicate, and we challenge them to communicate with us a certain way so that we feel comfortable, rather than realizing we're part of that dance all the time. We do it with our partners too. I wouldn't do this if they didn't do that. Well, why don't you just not do that? You can't make somebody else accountable for your behavior. It completely strips your agency and your sense of power. disappears immediately. Well, I can only be the person I want to be if you show up as the person I need you to be in order for me to be that way.
Yeah.
But we live in a culture of blame, and we live in a culture of, if you notice something about yourself that isn't ideal in a situation, we have to defend ourselves against it rather than taking ownership. It's like we're somehow owning that we're bad on some level. That was a bad thing. It's not about good or bad. We're so focused on good and bad. This is a huge thing when it comes to parenting. We live in a framework of what is good or bad. We're very rarely looking at our children. We're looking at behavior and action of our child and defining whether it's good or bad, and then looking at whether we should allow it or stop it.
Versus, reframe that for
Versus
me.
why is this happening? What is the environment that they are in that is creating this situation, and how does it need to change? All human beings behave in environment, right? Does that land? We only
Yes.
ever
Yeah.
behave in environment. So if we are looking at a person behaving badly in environment, we make it about them rather than what is going on in this environment that is so deeply uncomfortable for that human being that's making them do this. No one likes acting badly, extreme emotion, acting out, lashing out, swearing, whatever it might be in those sorts of
I do like
situations.
swearing, but yeah.
I could be completely wrong, but we like swearing when we feel out of control, and we're swearing out of anger and rage and frustration.
Yeah, that is different swearing. Yeah.
It's a different swearing, because I mean, I'm a massive fan of swearing. Anyone who works with me one-to-one knows, like, we cannot get through a session without swearing. But
Yes.
it is about being able to step outside of the good and bad construct and go, what is happening that person feels pushed into a corner? We only ever act out when we have tried every other way of communicating and we still are feeling unheard, that the frustration builds and we act out at something else. So we will act out. Think of it as the language of it. It is an acting out. It's like, okay, I've asked a question, or I've tried to express this, and I'm not getting anywhere. So I'll get more frustrated. I'll get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we use different things. And it starts with a raised voice, then it goes to swearing, and then sometimes it goes to violence, or throwing things, or smashing things, or slamming out of rooms, or whatever. But essentially, we then go, oh, they're bad. They have to stop doing that. Not why did they end up in that place?
I really thought you were describing parents there.
Well, I
Like,
am.
that's,
And kids.
yeah, I think that's a massive, I mean, very early on when the kids were young, I'd really lost my temper with one of them. And I was really, I felt horrible. I felt disgusting. I was talking to my friend about it, and he was like, mate, you're just frustrated that in that moment you couldn't be creative and find anything else. And that was actually it. That was really
Huh?
it. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, I acted out. I couldn't think of anything better. And I think this is both the test, but also the reward of parenting is it brings you face to face with the bits of you that aren't developed well, your own shortcomings. For me, it was a really it's an obvious way to understand that I'm not. I think my ego, myself, is always in charge, but it's not. I'm carrying all the things that I've grown up with, all my parenting messages, but also those societal messages about what is bad and what is good. They're all there. And there's this tiny me in the middle who isn't really in control of all of that at all.
Well, unless we become aware of it. And that's where discussion and, awareness comes into play, that is so powerful, because we start to question the cultural belief systems that we live within, the norms, the good and bad. We have these definitions of good and bad. And then you go to, like, I don't know, somewhere like Japan, and you're introduced to a young child and they won't look you in the eye because that is the most offensive thing you could do. That's bad. And yet we're, just forcing our children.
Look him in the eye, boy. Yeah.
And it's just this awareness of, like, the minute something is outside of our belief system, as interestingly, like you say, the ego is a protective tool that we develop and we grow through our lives from day one of birth. Like it's developing and developing and developing. And it's like a shell that lives on the outside of us. And it takes in all this information. And so it's constantly kind of like looking to put things back in place. And then the ego is telling us what's right and wrong. And our child is challenging that. It stops being about the child and it's just the inner focus becomes, I must reassert this power that I have over everything. And that's when we lose creativity, because we start to just try to win and we lose all of it. In that moment, we get into a panic mode and it just becomes this power struggle. And then none of it is about, well, hang on a second, why is this going on? What's actually happening? We're acting out fear in that moment. And when we're acting out fear, we start to lose our cool. And when we start to lose our cool, we get bigger than the problem. And that's when we get very aggressive.
I want to scoop those three of those things together, right? That you've said so far. So one is when a child is acting out, to not look at them, but to ask why. Why is this environment causing that? The second is to ask, is it bad? Is this behavior bad? What is good? What is bad? What am I carrying here that dictates to me this is bad? And the third is an awareness of yourself, and that actually part of what you're trying to do, if you decide to kind of push this and win, is to control that environment and make sure you, not the child, you are not experiencing that discomfort.
Yeah, I mean, we are so manipulative as parents. It's because we're humans, okay? So it's a really funny thing being a parenting coach, because if you have any opinion about anything to do with children and then someone asks you what you do and you say, you literally see people freak the hell out because they're like, oh my God, like, worse than being a therapist. Like saying
Right, totally, yeah. You can say I'm a bad person, but a bad parent?
I mean,
Yeah, it's the
literally.
worst. I mean, bad mum, even worse, I reckon.
But so you see, it becomes all about the success of being the parent and getting it right. There is no such thing as bad at all. There's a perspective of bad. There is just a perspective of bad. How does that land?
I mean, my son at the moment is 12, about to turn 12. He's going through a massive growth spurt. We just had a week and a half of him basically not going into school, being very, I feel weird. My skin feels different. It's been very uncomfortable for everyone. He's had these sort of like anxiety things. What's really interesting, going off what you're saying, if I'm completely honest about why this week has been really tough, he's back in school now. Well, one, I want to say, first of all, thank God there's two of us. It's made me really appreciative that I am in a couple with a partner, that we don't feel we have to be on the same page, but we can be on the same team. And I'm looking at my friends who are single mums and dads and being like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, well done for everything you're doing. But the second is that when I really drill down into why it's been a tough week, you've got, I've had to kind of change my whole routine so I can be really present for him in the morning. I've taken him to work with me. I've spent loads of time on the phone with the school. It's massively disrupted my life.
Yep.
Not just my work that I've got to do to pay the bills, but the work that I love and I enjoy and gives me meaning and fulfillment.
Well, you're sacrificing, aren't you? It's your agency.
Right. And it's like, so there's that. There is a frustration that I can't make him behave differently, that the things I'm saying don't seem to be landing, that I'm like, but why isn't it getting better? I'm doing all the stuff, it's not getting better. There's that frustration. And there is an ego thing of, hang on, I'm someone who does a podcast about parents. This is embarrassing, right?
We're meant to get it right.
Was meant to get it right, right? And I'm like, but no, you can't. You've got to go to school. I'm the parenting guy, right? And then
absolutely, and this is why
down there, near the bottom, if I'm honest, is
Him.
him.
Right?
Because I know there's nothing really wrong with my son other than puberty's a bitch, right? Like, so actually what I would say to people is, oh, it's been awful, poor him, it's a nightmare. But actually, most of those emotions are really about myself.
Really about ourselves. And really, most people come to me in the courses, especially. So when they come and they do a group course with me, the goal, and this is the class one, I'm like, this is not going to happen for you, is I'm going to do this course so that my kid will do X. Right? I want my child to be more driven. I want my child to be less anxious. I want my child to be more polite. I'm going to come and do this course. You're going to tell me what and how I should be so I can get my kid to do X. So I can feel successful because I believe that good kids, happy kids, successful kids do Y. And that it's not about what to do to get an outcome. It's about how do I be to let my child grow into an adult.
How do I be to let my child grow into an adult? Yeah, that's
Because
lovely.
we talk about raising kids,
It's
and
grammatically
it's
terrible, but
raising.
sorry.
Not an English teacher. Raising children. Just think of that term. I'm raising children. If you raise children, you get children. You get big children, but they're still children. And really, when you're talking about raising children, you're talking about maintaining control of another person. I am raising my child. I am keeping them a child. I am raising them. I am controlling them, and I am telling them how it needs to be and who they need to be as a human. That's not our job. It's become our job. It's especially become our job in culture today because we're all so busy proving our worth. And I think that then you've got, unfortunately for women, you've still got this framework of, well, we're meant to be the working mums. There's a massive stigma around that, right? So we've got to prove that we can still raise healthy children and have a career, because otherwise we've been selfish and had a career at the expense of our child, or we've made a choice to stay at home with our kids. And then we've got to prove that they're going to be the best bloody kids ever.
That's a full-time job that's
Because
worthy
that's
of.
my job. And so they become the fucking gold bracelet, see, swearing, at the end of there's your gold watch. So what does that person do? What does that person do, that family do, when they've got the kid that's going through self-harm, or the kid that's anorexic, or the 24-year-old that falls into drugs and alcohol after he leaves uni because he's in a really bad place? It all becomes about, I failed. What do I do to stop the behavior? Not what's going on for them that is the cry for help, that I can support them through it. And we come in with all these ideas and all this pressure on our children, and all we're doing is saying to them, you're right, there's a problem here, you're wrong, and we need to get you better. So we're actually just adding more stress to what is already a very stressed person.
Interested to hear you say, particularly in this day and age, or why is this a new or more recent problem?
I mean, there's like kind of the socioeconomic side of parenting as well. We didn't have kids to have relationships with them 300 years ago. They were like, we had them so they could work the field.
They could make money, right? Yeah,
Right.
they could. Yeah.
It's having children is a selfish task.
Yes.
Right? Having children is nobody has children in a selfless way. It's impossible. We choose to have a child, therefore it is our personal choice. They don't ask to come into the world. It's always our choice. In fact, when you were saying about it's a real inconvenience for my life, I've put everything on hold so that I can be present for my son. When we can be aware of that,
Such an arsehole.
it's no, but see, you've just judged yourself for it, for a genuine need and want. Understanding that's your need and want, that's fine. But then when you can flip it, or at least see that you chose an action in the face of the situation, this is not it's a selfless act in the sense that you are choosing to put him before you and those needs, but you have chosen it.
Why have I chosen to do that? Because I I want the harmony in my home, my home life, and my children, and my relationship with my wife. They are, for me at this moment in time, they are my happiness. So really my drive is to get this relationship back where I want it.
Where your nervous system feels comfortable.
Yeah.
So we are always, as animals, looking to recalibrate our nervous system to a comfortable place. That's the science of a human being. Okay, so that's actually what's happening when a kid's having a massive tantrum. It's got nothing to do with good or bad. It's got nothing to do. They're so manipulative because they're going to get me to do what they want me to do, and I'm going to hold my ground. It's like all well and good. Why are they manipulating you? What do they need to see happen? What is uncomfortable for them? Right? Let me understand, because it's all an unsettled nervous system. And we only want our kid to stop screaming because our nervous system is on fire. And then we want to maintain control because our nervous system is terrified of being out of control. And so we have to assert that we're in control, and we have to remind the ego that it's okay, that screaming thing over there is going to do what we say, so we're safe. It all comes back to I feel so uncomfortable in my skin. I need them to be that so I don't have to feel this. That doesn't mean do everything a kid wants because you understand their need. That's where permissive parenting comes in. You sent me that article.
Okay, yeah, so 2 articles just this week, but actually at any time in my feed, we've got articles around. The one I sent you was from the Eye, what teachers really think about gentle parenting. Headlines last week, Telegraph, are we ruining our children? It's a constant debate, basically. I spoke to a friend. I was like, I'm speaking to a parenting coach on Friday, any questions? And they were like, gentle parenting is exhausting. There is no data, which I think, I've just read Dr. Shafali, who you trained under. It's a brilliant book, but it is a philosophy book. There is not a single piece of data in that book. It's a philosophy that I like, but we don't know the cost of this philosophy, right?
No, we don't know the cost of the philosophy, but what's the data that we're looking for? What are we looking? So we're very focused on data. What would be successful parenting? What data would you need to prove that your philosophy around how you'd raised your child, whatever it might be, was successful? What would that be? Money, a job? What are we looking for?
Yeah.
I mean,
What's
I
the
personally
measure?
think healthy relationships
Yeah, which are unmeasurable,
and
right?
self-love. And when I say self-love, I mean being able to hold healthy boundaries, being able to go for the things that you want and challenge yourself in life, believing that your needs are important, being able to tolerate stress because it doesn't go into shame, being able to tolerate sadness because it doesn't go into a spiral of fear and shame. That to me is a successful process of helping a human grow into an adult, because that's really all we're doing.
Again, these are just things that I'm working on in my 40s. It's okay to be sad and to not feel great all the time, and that doesn't mean life is going badly. In fact, it's supposed to be like that.
Well, we're trying to actually unlearn as a generation. Our generation are really trying to unlearn and allow ourselves to be sad and sit in discomfort and do things like that. And I think a lot of these articles are helping or fighting the corner of the ego that is terrified to try a different way. It's this fear of it's all going to unravel and it's all going to fall apart because we are so rigid as a culture in terms of what success is, and letting go of control. Like people think that I can't stand the term gentle parenting. It's just fucking parenting.
We decided punitive doesn't work, right? Can I condense it as that? It's we're not going to shout and we're not going to punish.
But we're obviously going to shout because we're all human beings and we all get pushed to a point of not being able to communicate effectively.
I'm so glad you said that. But what I mean is, I'm not going to justify my shouting as, yeah, I meant to do that. I did it on purpose and that was a good thing.
You mean we're not going to lie? Because we know it's not a good thing. We know it. We absolutely know it. Do you know how we know it? We feel like shit afterwards. Our nervous system is out of whack afterwards. We can feel it in your body when you've really lost it about something, whether it's on a work call, at your own child, at your partner, in a car, at the guy that was really annoying. You can literally feel the vibration in your body that is discomfort. We know it's not good. So turning around and saying, that was the right thing to do because it's like, well, it wasn't right for them and it wasn't right for you. If you feel this shit about it, and clearly, how is it going to, and what's it taught? This is the big question. What is it taught? Well, my child will do what I say. Okay, today,
When you shout,
when it suits them for now, but what is your end game here? Because if your end game is a respectful relationship, then screaming and shouting at anyone isn't going to get you anywhere, because that person, it's not even, they might stay in your life forever, but do not be under the illusion that they respect you, that they listen to anything you say, or that they even think you care that much. They're not doing what you say out of respect. They're doing it out of fear. They're doing it for an easy life. So you've got to decide what you want. Do you want, maybe then they did their homework and they get good grades and they get a good job and they earn money. Fantastic. But are they doing any of that for themselves?
what's paradoxical there is that you're absolutely right. It always feels disgusting, but it also always feels like the easiest thing to do.
Well, you
Right?
used a very interesting word. You said about gentle parenting, it's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Yeah.
And we live in a culture and society where everything has to be quick and easy and fast because we are so fast and doing so much. We've got to fit it in. And parenting has become a part of that. We are pissed off that actually building a relationship with a person, this very small person who has an underdeveloped brain, and an underdeveloped nervous system, and zero window of tolerance, is going to take an awful lot of time and effort to grow. It's like watching a plant grow, and it does take time. And yes, if you want to build a relationship where your kids want to be a part of your life as adults, and that's what you want, and you want to have joy in your home, and you want to have relationship, and you want to have interesting conversation, and you want to help them make choices in life, then it takes time. No one would turn around to their partner and go, our relationship needs to be fitted into a 25-minute window because I've got to get to work. And anyone who has is divorced.
It's going badly. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It's the same for our children. Yes, it's a ball ache. It is a ball ache. And I think that is, I think if I could teach one thing that people die with, is it's hard because it's hard. Your kid isn't meant to be able to get ready for school in 10 minutes because you overslept and you've got to get to work. Like, make some choices. Get up 40 minutes earlier. Don't make it their problem. We can't push our kids' development. Cannot. The brain cannot do it. And we don't need to shame them along the way. And we don't need to shame ourselves. I think the faster we accept that it's a ball ache, and it's actually not actually meant to be that fun, and we're not fucking it up, we could feel a lot better about it. I'm speaking to you from Spain, so I've traveled out to hide from my children for a couple of days. and and talking about being an amazing parent, and there was this couple, really sweet couple behind me with a 4-year-old, and this kid was getting so irate, as they do on planes. I mean, it's like, but you're already getting on a plane fearful of what's going to go down on that airplane, aren't you? Like, you're in a space, the kid's going to want something, you're not going to want to give it to them. And I could literally hear the power struggle building. And it was almost like I could hear in his mind of like, don't give in. You cannot be permissive here. You cannot let him sit next to his mother. You can't. And he was getting more and more and more hysterical, because it all actually, in that moment, it just all became a lesson about him not giving in. So this 4-year-old who's got no window of tolerance and no impulse control. And I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, he thinks he's being permissive by leaning in this moment and going, just sit next to your mother. You're on an aeroplane. You're surrounded by hundreds of other people. This is not the time to teach the lesson and try and instill patience. It's just not. Accept it. Right? So he got really, really rigid and not getting anywhere. And then obviously what happens? Collapse. He ends up sitting there. But the dad is in so much shame with himself that he's livid because the project didn't go according to plan. And I turned around, obviously didn't tell them I was a parenting coach, and said, and smiled at them, first of all, because he was sitting right behind me and kicking the back of my chair. And I was like, honestly, it's really fine. And I just turned around and said that. And they looked at me and I said, this is a really shit bit, by the way.
Yes.
And his face was just like, thank you. I said, I promise you this too shall pass. It's a really shit bit. And he goes, but I shouldn't have given in. I shouldn't have given in. It's really bad. I was like, are you mad? I would have given in. What are you trying to do in this moment?
Well, I mean, I'm going to jump in and massively overlay a hypothetical history for that couple, even though we don't know who they are. But there's probably been some kind of conversation, which is, can you keep him off me on the plane? I will do, but you always fold and let me bring him to. There's this thing that kind of happens between the parents, which is very often, as dads, our job is to take away and to distract. And then when we can't do that well, we often get frustrated with this idea. Well, you've said he can go to you. You're still there. You're the problem, because it's really tough to admit you're shit at this job that you have in that moment as a father. I think all of that is going on for
Yes,
men in particular, right? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just, that's what I'm.
it's dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the reality is, because he stayed in the story, he couldn't meet the kid's need. And the need was not actually to sit next to the mum. That was the want. Difference. He wanted to be close to his mum, and the dad wasn't listening. And he just kept saying no. It kept saying no, and the tempo was escalating. And then it just became stop shouting. First of all, the belief that a 4-year-old can stop shouting at being told to stop shouting is insane. I mean, 45-year-old men can't do it, so how can a 4-year-old do it? But the fear of he stayed rigid.
Sorry, just to jump in there, I think the problem is that for a lot of us, and no blame here, because punitive parenting just used to be the norm, a lot of us, we have been stopped shouting by being scared into stopping shouting.
Oh.
And that's how I grew up. It's like your emotions can have a space for a while, but if they carry on, I will scare you into shutting up.
Yes, yeah, definitely. What he needed was connection. Right? So what happens with gentle parenting, the message is, unless it's taught, it's a way to be. We've got to change the way we be. It's not a list of things you fucking do. It will never work. That's why it starts with us, because we've got to do our own work, to work on our own nervous system, to have the space to be a different way. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And that's why I work with parents. So being able to understand that his job in that moment wasn't to keep his son off the chair next to his wife. His job in the moment was to help his son through the difficult emotion. It's not about not having the want, and it's not about getting what you want. It's about the dad understanding that he's 4. His window of tolerance is 0. His impulse control is 0. His feelings are big, and he's looking for connection. And the connection is, first of all, acknowledging what he wants. You want to sit next to mummy. I can hear you. Because at no point did this poor dad acknowledge to the boy
Yeah,
And
I
if you're
can hear
thinking
what
how
you're saying.
binary it is to be four, he's just going in his little tiny head. Daddy's not listening. Daddy's not listening. Daddy's not listening. I just need to get daddy to hear that I need to sit next to mommy. I need to sit next to mommy. I just need to sit next to mommy. I need to sit next to mommy. And he's not listening. He's not listening. He's not listening. He's getting more frustrated that he can't find a way to make daddy hear what he wants. And then it just becomes a fight about what he wants. He can be upset that he can't be next to mummy, but that's not by that point what he was upset about anymore.
Yeah, okay.
I know you want to be next to mummy, and you're going to be next to mummy. You could be next to mummy later. Yes, be next to mummy in 10 minutes. Let's do 10 minutes because I know you want to be next to mummy. I hear that you want to be next to mummy, and this is why it's not going to happen. And we'll do it later. And I know it's hard, and I'm going to cuddle you. I'm going to hold you the whole time because you're so upset about it. We try and stop upset. And it's funny you just said about being, understanding at 43 that we can be sad. Well, we're still telling our children they can't because we're like,
because it's too annoying. It's too annoying for me.
it's too uncomfortable for me to see you sad. Don't be miserable. And that's the problem that we fall into because our job is not to create this. Our job is to help our children feel and be mindful and not afraid of their feelings. And in order to do that, we have to be able to hold space for them to be really sad, process a mood. And actually, no, you can't do that. No one in life's going to be friendly with you if you walk around being moody or if you're this or if you're that. And actually, what we're saying is, I'm so uncomfortable seeing you like that. I'm going to just either shame you into being in a better mood or ban it. Yeah, don't be sad. Don't be sad. Don't be sad. What can we do to take your sad away? I think that's one of the biggest reasons anxiety, there's many reasons anxiety is super high for teenagers today, but a big part of it is that if you think you shouldn't feel worried and you do, you're going to worry about the fact that you feel worried.
Yeah, why am I worried? Yeah,
There's something
yeah.
so wrong with me. There's something so wrong with me. Then not rather than, oh, this is a red flag. What in my environment is not serving me? That's a much more interesting question. Not how do I shut the feeling down? Because it won't work. You can't turn off worry. It's a fear of the unknown or a fear of something not being comfortable, a fear of something going wrong. So if you can't just keep trying, I'm anxious, I'm just going to ignore it. The anxiety's going to keep going, like pop up somewhere else. Don't need to be afraid of being afraid. We need to acknowledge what we're afraid of. That it takes time to sit down with your kids and not panic about their anxiety and not feel anxious about their anxiousness because it's our fault, obviously, if they're anxious and there's something we could do to take it away. And if it's not going away, it's our fault and our problem and we're not parenting right. You see the loop? It's fucked.
Totally.
We're just in a spiral of panic.
So let's take that back to what you were saying about the socioeconomic differences and the fact that we used to have children to survive and to look after us and to help with whatever business we did, to the fact that now John Vervaeke, the philosopher, said that basically, you can persuade humans to act outside of their own selfish interests in a bid for meaning. And he gave the example of having children. He's like, you've got less money, you never sleep, you hate your spouse, you're sick all the time, your social relationships suffer, but we still have children and we do it because it gives us a sense of meaning. Is that part of the problem? That actually the children have become our meaning?
I think we thrive in relationship, and so we're always looking for deep connection. And I think there is something, we're animals at the end of the day, right? So really, humans have humans because we've got to, keep the race going.
That's why we're here.
Might as well be elephants or parrots or whatever, like really strip it back. But as humans, anthropologists and philosophers and sociologists have found that we do have this empathic side, but the empathic side is selfish. So where's interesting is true altruism, like we're an empath because it feeds a part of us and gives us something.
Yeah,
I think.
Totally resonates with me.
I think about this from a philosophical way. Now, if you think that what's happened over millennia and since the Industrial Revolution is there's like a needs must basis of things that go on in life. Like, you've got to get thick boxes ticked before you have time and space for other things, right? And
Yeah,
so I
pyramid
guess
of needs stuff, right?
meaning was kind of bottom of the list because survival comes first. So we didn't really think about what relationship with child looked like. So we don't have any definition really of good or bad or what it was. You got to clip around the ear, get back to the field, whatever. It was all about survival, because if you didn't toe the field and you didn't do that menial hard labor, we died. And so there was very, very small amounts of time for connection. And those amounts of time were very lovely, and they were just kind of not really thought about that much. The more we have done for us, and I think this applies to relationship as well in terms of adult relationship, the more we have done for us that is outside of our own actions and need to survive, i.e., we don't need to manage homes ourselves. We can pay people to do it. We've got washing machines, so that's quicker. We've got cars, so we don't walk places. We've got factories. All of this kind of stuff has left a huge amount of time for consciousness and a need for deeper meaning to come into play. And so therefore, we're looking at our relationships and asking other to help fill that cup of meaning and purpose, because there's time and space for it. We're a far more conscious generation than the generation before. It's not that our parents were screwing up. They just didn't have the time to think about this stuff. It was a different world. They didn't have the time. They didn't have the education. They didn't have the science. Talking about data, think about the data. It would have taken it's taken lifetimes until now to get data on brain function. And now all they do is take a photo and go, that bit's red. It's not that our parents wanted to hurt us, and we don't want to hurt our kids. It's just we have all this information about what's happening to our children's brains when we're behaving a certain way. So it changes the way that we're acting. We're like, I'm trying that because I know that shouting's not good, and I'm trying not to shout, but I don't know any other way to do it. It's only because we know that, because we can see the red bits on a kid's brain. Our parents didn't know that.
I have a friend who is a primary teacher at a private London school. She was talking to me the other week saying, I don't enjoy my job anymore. And it's basically that parental anxiety has gone through the roof. Is that what that is? It's this kind of this awareness we have of how we can affect our children by doing the wrong thing.
Yes, I think if you know you can do something wrong, you try not to. But then we're putting so much pressure on our kids to prove to us that we haven't done it wrong. And then, because we are doing the best we can, like we really, really are. People say to me all the time, oh, you must have perfect kids. And I say, my answer, and this is genuinely the truth, and genuinely, I think why I do what I do for a living, is no, I do not have perfect kids, because there's no such thing as a perfect kid. I'm just okay with not having perfect kids. My work every day is showing up for myself to get out of the fucking story so I can actually be a parent to my kids and accept who they are. Because that's really my job, is like, really, I just want to be their absolute number one cheerleader so they love themselves enough to be the best version of themselves for them. That doesn't mean me running behind them literally with a banner. It means me stepping out of the story constantly and being able to, it's not about giving in or not giving in. It's about me holding my own, knowing my why, calling my kids out on stuff that I don't think is right, but also saying to them, I know this is my opinion. This is my perspective. You may do the complete opposite, and I'm not going to make you bad for that. I have to do my work so you don't grow up like me, and I have to be okay with you pushing those things away. All of that, guys, all about me. My thing, great parenting, I think, is accepting there's no such thing as great parenting, and it's not my job to be a great parent. How do I know what they need, who they should be? And I think there's a whole module in one of my courses around the cultural constructs that we live under, because essentially everything we're driving our children to is a perspective that we have of our generation, our upbringing, what was important to us, what it meant to have a successful career however many years ago. The world's completely different. Any child that does exactly what we say to further their career as they get older is screwed. So when I hear a parent is pushing their child towards university, I'm like, why? I'm not saying no, but I'm saying why. Let's challenge the cultural structure that you're coming to that place from, because it might not be for your kid. Oh, but it's where that's you're going to get a good job. Really? Have you looked at the data of those kids coming out with firsts? Because none of them can get a job. So we've got to kind of step out of the construct of good parenting and be like, this is a person in front of me.
Getting myself out of my story. That sounds like it's constant work for you, right? To not slip into it. It's constant awareness. Hang on, I'm doing it. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think anyone that thinks that they're going to do a course or go into any kind of therapy or do any kind of coaching, there's no quick fix. That it is a way to be. I think people that eat well and are really fit understand that. Like, you're not like, oh well, brilliant, job done, I'm fit and I eat well now. Oh, I did all that exercise and now I'm whatever. Or even if they're trying to get to a certain weight or whatever. Oh, right, and now I've reached this ideal weight. Okay, well, now what do? You just stop? No, you have to still be aware of what you're putting in your body and how you're moving your body, and you have to have an awareness and a consciousness and a mindfulness about it. And I think that the way that we live today, everything's so quick and so fast, we think we could put parenting into a box, especially when they're little and it's really, really hard and the mental load is so high and we're so tired. And we are a generation where a lot of people are working multiple jobs and have multiple children and multiple stresses, and our parents are living longer. So we've got that stress. There's so much stress. It's another thing to do. And so we go, right, bedtime 7, you eat this, you eat in this amount of time, you brush your teeth, and everything is about a tick box, and none of it is about connection and communication and just being. And so there's no fucking joy in it.
And none of it works.
None of it works.
It just doesn't.
You end up in a power struggle. You're just constantly in a power struggle because you're constantly in opposition to what you're trying to achieve. You are trying to push water uphill. You are trying to get a person to act like a machine so that life works quicker. And then you end up in the fight. And then guess what happens? Everything lasts longer. And then it becomes, well, what do I do? Do I let them do anything and everything? And it's like, no, but you've got to understand, there's not one or the other. Life is not black and white like that. There is a space in between. And we need to help them build the window of tolerance that I keep talking about. This window of tolerance. We have to help them build impulse control. Telling a 7-year-old to do something and expecting it to happen without your support is not going to happen.
The fact that I'm mastering some of those things, impulse control like that, as I get older, is because it's taken ages of practice. Like, there's not been a sort of short and unconsciousness. There's not been any shortcut to it. No one could explain it to me and then me be like, okay, you have to do it quite a lot and fail at it quite a lot.
And interestingly, the more you talk about it, the better you get at it. Am I right? The more awareness you have of yourself and where things go wrong or where you get pulled down or where your impulses are lacking. And it's a conversation, not a shaming, not a finger pointing, not an accusation, not a blaming, but a conversation. You know why? Because you build awareness. The neurons in your brain, the neural pathways build in awareness and consciousness, correct? So maybe if we stop just pointing our finger at our children and telling them what to do and how to be and then shaming them when they're not, and it's a conversation with a deep understanding that no one clearly means to do X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, sleep through their alarm, whatever. And meeting it with a, why do you think that happened? What's going on there? Not help them build those pathways. Help them build that awareness so they can do it younger than us. That's where we have power. I'm going to teach them. I'm going to show up that way all the time. Everything I'm asking of my kids. If I can't do it, I cannot have a go at them for not doing it. If I want them to be mindful and considered. I have to be mindful and considered, and I have to acknowledge when I'm not, and I have to notice when I'm not, and I have to change my environment or do things for myself that help me to have a wider window of tolerance. And they're watching that. You can't walk into a room and scream at your child and tell them to calm down. You are the model. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do. My child just has the worst temper. Every time my child doesn't get what he wants, he absolutely spirals out of control. Okay, that's interesting. He starts shouting. Yes, he asks and he asks and he asks and he asks and he asks. And then every time I say no, he just then explodes. Okay, tell me what bedtime looks like. Well, I ask and 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 I ask. And they don't do what I say. And eventually I explode.
I mean, I've literally said to my kids, I'm like, I feel like I should just start shouting now, because what I'm going to do is ask you to do this thing continuously, and you're basically not going to do it until I lose my shit.
But we've got to understand, we've got to look at, if I'm going to start losing my shit, the story I tell myself is they're not listening to me, they're not respecting me, I'm wrong, I'm losing control, right? So that's the inner dialogue that makes you lose your shit. Look at me, this weak, pathetic person I am. I can't even control my family. It's generally like, you know, who the fuck, they're not listening, they don't respect me. This is like, wait, slow down. Why? Why are they not listening? First of all, developmental. How old are they? What are they capable of? 2, what environment are we in? 3, what do I need to do differently to get the effective result that I want? You're not necessarily going to get it, but it could be that you're shouting it from another room. It could be that there's a TV on, and so they're like, you know, their attention is separated. Like, if you really want to, you've got to start changing when they're very little. Very often, it's about coming in, turning off all the extraneous stimuli that's going on, and getting down right in front of them and being like, "This happens now." No, well, then they'll just have a tantrum. Okay, well, there's obviously there's a reprogramming of a dynamic that needs to happen, and yes, unfortunately, if you want to be conscious in your parenting and not permissive in your parenting, you have to be able to step into the space and time it can take. The irony is, it doesn't actually, in the long term, take very long. It's a very short term thing to invest the time it takes to change a dynamic for a very big long term result. Whereas it's a very short term thing to explode and get what you want, but the long term impact is much more damaging.
Also, then their nervous system, that's what it takes to get that response for them to do it. Then you're ending up going there every time because they can weather it. Yeah. I mean, I think interestingly on the bedtime thing, the big thing that shifted for us was for it to not be dictated, for it to change to a, what do you think is reasonable? Let's Google how many hours sleep you need. Let's look at what time you're getting up to involve them in that conversation.
Well, this is boundaries. Boundaries and discipline is a huge thing. Holding a boundary is not about rigidity. That's about owning space. It's like, you know, you wouldn't have an issue holding a boundary if you needed to get your son to hospital because he'd broken his ankle. You'd be like, no, we're going now. Get the car. It's all of this like wishy-washy. Oh, but it's a rule and discipline. A good lead. I heard this recently. Oh my God, who said it was so good? I think it was Martha Beck. A good leader doesn't have to ask anyone to follow them.
Lovely.
So true.
Yeah.
A good leader, discipline, disciple. To be a disciple of somebody does not involve any fear. It only involves respect and a deep understanding of each other. If you're raising your voice all the time, if you are in a power struggle all the time, and if you are finger pointing all of the time, your communication needs work as a family, as a dynamic. That's it. No one's done anything wrong. Everyone's just got into the wrong habits and the wrong patterns. And everyone, the whole family can re-strategize that very easily. And the amazing thing is, you don't have to ask anyone else to do it. All you have to do is do something different. It's so powerful. All you need to do is change your communication and all the other communication changes, because it cannot not change.
Because you've changed the environment by doing that. So
And you're dancing differently. And so you can come up against resistance to it. And very often, I would say week 5 of my long course is a really interesting week, because all the dynamics in the family are going, wait, what's going on? You get this real pushback, and it's holding that space of your new boundary, of your new way of communicating, and staying true to where you're at. And then it starts to re-strategize after that, because everyone's just fights against it. It's like, no, let me do what I always do. You know, think about it. Like, water will flow in the direction that there is space. You put a ball in it, and there's a bit of a fight to push that ball down the stream. The water's pushing. Eventually, it comes round the sides. There's new directions. There's new pathways. We've built these patterns with our kids, but we can rebuild them. But it does take a bit of time, a little bit of patience.
humans want to grow. We all want to grow, but we don't want to change. And this is the thing we're constantly battling. It's like, I want to get better. I want to get bigger. I want to get deeper, but I don't want to do things differently, because that's very uncomfortable.
It's the only way to do it is to make a tiny change, and then not panic when it doesn't work. So that this is the problem with parenting books. And this is probably the reason I haven't actually written one, because I don't want to tell people what to do. Because if you read my book and I say to you, do X, Y, and Z, and then you go, great, okay, I really understand this philosophy. I live by it. I love it. It's exactly the kind of parent I want to be. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do that. First of all, it ignores all of your own past triggers, cultural belief systems, own upbringing, all of that, the voices in your head, that you go in and you go in anyway, and you go, right, I'm going to do the thing. You do the thing. It inevitably won't work out the way you want it to. And you go, I'm broken. I'm wrong. If I was a good parent, it would work. And by working, it means I will get X person in front of me to do what I want, which should never really be the outcome of any given situation. And then we give up. And then we actually just end up really angry at our kid that they just reflected to us yet again that we can't do it right. And it ends up in a really negative energy cycle. And that's the problem with these books. You've got to change the way you be. You've got to be a parent and not do a parent, right? It's not a list of rules, it's a way of being. And in that, it is confidence, which comes through bravery, because no one builds confidence without showing up and doing things enough times to know that they can survive it. That's how we build confidence. It's not something you have. Being brave, stepping in, holding space, being terrified. Get to grips with that one. Yeah, you're in charge of another human being. No wonder you're terrified. You are terrified. You're meant to be terrified. It's okay to be terrified. This isn't meant to be easy.
There is a type or a story, a background of mum who is highly educated, been to university, got a good job, kind of stuck with that job, worked really, really hard, been diligent, been successful, not taken a lot of risks, and had a really rewarding career as a result. And then finding being a mother doesn't fit into anything that they've learnt. It causes massive, massive anxiety. They've never really failed at much. The idea that you're supposed to is very hard to get their head around.
Yes, and it's the only way to actually grow is to fail. The only way to work out what works for your kid is to also work out what doesn't. But that's feedback. And the shame that people come to me in, and I'm like, none of this is bad. It's all great info. Because we've got a massive database of what's not working. And then we can just do something different. And it's all trial and error. I think you're so right. This high functioning, again, it comes into this framework that I was talking about, society today, and these, like, the mother who can do it all, the woman who, you know, we're meant to, like, be the mom, be the friend, have a job. If you don't have a job, the kid becomes the job. If you do have a job, you know, the kid has to be, you know, turn out all right so you can prove that you did both well. You will never get it right with your child. It's not about that. And if you are a high functioning person that has been taught and had evidence that the harder you work and the more you try, the outcomes will be good, it's really hard, because being a parent is so fluid, and the feedback, the massive tantrum, believe it or not, for those parents out there, if your kid is losing their shit constantly at 3 years old, well done. They're developmentally on track. Your job is not to stop it, because actually their brain needs it. There's a whole load of science that proves now, with our photos of the brain, that they actually need it in order to feel that energy in their body and be able to kind of process it. So hang on a second. If a tantrum shows they're upset, if they're upset, my job is to make them happy, and if they're not happy, then I failed. But I'm trying as hard as I can, and I'm still getting it wrong. What does that high functioning woman do? Well, I know what I did. I went back to work. It was way easier until I changed my whole life and became a therapist. It came from this massive, the whole reason my career was born and ended up specializing in this area is really from the like massive shock that hit me like a truck when I had my first child. Nothing fit. It didn't work. Just get ready to feel like you're doing everything wrong the whole time. And the fear that if everything was going slightly right, what had I done and how had I done it so I could make sure that was what I always did every single time to make sure that it didn't ever go wrong again, which inevitably it did because I have a child who is a person.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. You can find links to Amie's courses on her website, amiecarltoncoaching.com. And as she says, her name has an incredibly annoying spelling, so I'm going to put it at the top of the show notes, along with her Instagram, where you can also find her TED Talk. You can find Be a Happier Parent on Instagram and TikTok, and I hope to see you all next week.